This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast. This episode is brought to you by AdamandEve.com. If you go to AdamandEve.com and type in the promo code SPORT, you'll get 50% off just about any item. And once again, I'm your host, Jesse Tapia. And to start out the show, we're going to go over this Ajayi to the Eagles trade. Originally for the show, I was thinking of doing the Jimmy Garoppolo to the San Francisco 49ers trade, but we'll get into that a little bit later into the show. I felt that this Ajayi trade was a little bit bigger than that since the Eagles are 7-1 and they're looking like a possible Super Bowl contender now with him. So yeah, let's get started. So yeah, this morning around 6:30 Pacific time, 9:30 Eastern time, it was announced that Ajayi was going to be traded to the Eagles for a fourth round pick, and I was pretty in shock because Ajayi has been a huge part of the Dolphins offense the last 2 years, and when he plays well for them, they usually win games, and he's just, like I said, he's just a huge part of that offense. But I'm not sure really what went into Adam Gase's mind or the Dolphins GM when they were making this trade, because even if, you are going to trade him, well, why don't you get a little bit more value for him? A fourth round pick is kind of low for his production. Sorry about that. But yeah, he's been, last year I believe he was top 5 in yards, and he's been around near the top and broken tackles and yards after he breaks tackles. So it's kind of odd how they just traded him away for just a fourth round pick. As far as everything goes for the Eagles, I mean, now I expect Carson Wentz to play even better than how he has been, because LeGarrette Blount, Wendell Smallwood, those are good running backs right there. I mean, they're okay running backs. Blount's able to get into the end zone on goal line situations and whatnot, but none of them really compare to Ajayi. And with Ajayi out there, Wentz doesn't really need to do too much, and they can start feeding the ball to Ajayi a lot more for Philadelphia, because this season Ajayi really wasn't doing all too well. I think he had the most touches without a touchdown this season with 152. So that can be due to the fact that Miami's offense really hasn't played well at all so far this season. Their offensive line has been really disappointing. Laramie Tunsil hasn't really played up to expectations. Juwan James hasn't really played that well. Mike Pouncey's always hurt, and Miami's guard situation going into the season was really in shambles, but they did nothing to fix it. They brought back Jermaine Bushrod, but he's really not a guy that they need for the future. They needed to really build up that offensive line, and that could be a reason as to why Ajayi struggled so far this season. But as far as him and Philly goes, I think he's going to be really successful over there. Philly's offensive line, their offensive line is way better than Miami's, and Ajayi just needs a little tiny hole to get through, and he's going to break some tackles for you. So, yeah, I really like what the Eagles did here. I mean, Howie Roseman has been making all kinds of good moves. He traded Maxwell and Kiko Alonso a couple years, or the year they got Wentz for the 8th pick, and used that 8th pick to move up to the 2nd pick. And, yeah, like I said, that's how they got Wentz. So far, so good with the GM. And as far as, I don't understand the trade from a Miami standpoint. Okay, you're 4-3 right now, and you're not really looking all too good, but like I said, you're 4-3, you're competing for a playoff spot, so why are you going to trade arguably the best player on your offense? I mean, you can make an argument that Jarvis Landry is one of the best in the offense, and it doesn't make sense to me. Ajayi has just been a beast so far the last couple of years, and now that he's gone, Miami really doesn't have a solid running back, because we're not sure. Damian Williams for them, he's their backup. He's more of a third down receiving back for them. He's not really a guy that you can really depend on, and Kenyon Drake really hasn't gotten too many opportunities to show us what he can do. So now that the trade deadline is passed, it's not looking like they're going to pick up anyone else. So yeah, right now Miami's only with 2 running backs, and they have a guy who plays on special teams for them, but like I said, he hasn't really ran the ball much, and he's just been on special teams. But as far as the Eagles go, to get back into them, I really like this move because it's just gonna make them even better. I mean, they were already before they were possible Super Bowl contenders. You could say that they had a good chance of making it to the NFC Championship, but now with this Ajayi move, I mean, he's a young guy. He's only 24 years old, I believe, and he's only making about $760K a year. So that's really low. So it's a good deal for them. I'm really excited to see how it plays out for them. The Eagles, they haven't really before. After Donovan McNabb left, they really weren't all too good. I mean, yeah, they had Michael Vick for a couple years, and that experiment didn't really work out all too well. So now with Wentz at the helm and Ajayi there, they're going to have a really good offense. That defense has been looking good so far this year, and it's just the Eagles are going to be a scary team in the NFC right now. Jeff Darlington reported earlier that the Dolphins were worried about Ajayi's knee holding up for his career and stuff like that. But the last time he tore his ACL was when he was at Boise State. I believe it was his freshman year or around there. And it really hasn't been a problem for them since. So I'm not really sure how much I buy into that report. And I really think that it's come down to attitude maybe for with Adam Gase and him. Because if you remember correctly last year, Miami went to Seattle and they left Ajayi at home because he was frustrated because he wasn't the starter. So they ended up starting Arian Foster that game. So Ajayi and Adam Gase have always had this kind of weird relationship. Adam Gase said a couple weeks ago that him, Jarvis Landry, and Ajayi were the hotheads of the team. So you never know if it could just be behind closed doors type of thing. And Adam Gase also recently said that players on the team just weren't showing real commitment to the team, and people weren't studying the playbook. And when you trade a top guy like this, I mean, it makes you think maybe he was one of those guys who wasn't. But I mean, the situation in Miami hasn't really been all too good so far this season. Jay Cutler hasn't worked out for them. Matt Moore he's just Matt Moore. He's off and on. You never really know how he's going to play each game. And the offense was not built to help Ajayi this season. Every time he'd get the ball and run it, he'd always go down the middle, and Adam Gase hasn't called at all, and he runs outside the tackles for him, so it's pretty much like he was handcuffed the entire time. And yeah, like I said, it's just a baffling move to me. If you're gonna trade a guy like that, then you need to get a little bit more value for him. He's a solid running back, and he's just a top running back, and I don't get it. But like I said, Philly now that they have Ajayi, he's not really a good pass blocking back, but he's able to get in between the tackles, and he's got a little bit of acceleration once he's running outside the tackles. And like I said, he's really good once he's breaking tackles. And Carson Wentz I think he's just going to elevate his play even more, because Carson Wentz, I think he has around 19 touchdowns already, which leads the league. And now teams are just going to have to, our defenses are just going to have to prepare for Ajayi also, and it's just going to be a nice little 1-2 punch for Philly. So we'll see how that goes. But now let's get into the Jimmy Garoppolo trade. So there's been a lot of hype around Garoppolo since the 2 games he's played for the Patriots, and I feel like most of the hype comes from the fact that he does play for the Patriots, and we really, of course, there's a reason why, but we really hype every player that the Patriots have, and once they get traded away, we all get excited about it, and they really don't turn out to do too well. Jamie Collins has done well so far this season, and Jacoby Brissett he's doing decent this season for the Colts, but other than that, you really don't see too much production from players who leave. And for the Niners to give up a high second-round pick for him, they're taking a gamble here. I mean, there was talk about Kirk Cousins being the guy that they were going to sign the next season, and now that's not going to be the case, because Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the guy of the future, or at least that's what San Francisco thinks. And I'm not really too sure about it, because I believe that this was Garoppolo's last year of the contract. So if you were like, because San Francisco's not really going anywhere this season, obviously they're 0-8 right now, and they're just building for the future right now. So I don't really think that the Patriots were going to really get anything for Garoppolo before other than San Francisco. So, I mean, they could have just waited out for him to play out his contract, and then once he was released, they could have signed him for probably even cheaper than what they could have got Kirk Cousins for. But now that they have Garoppolo, and let's say he does come in and he plays well, you're going to have to pay him a lot more. So, I mean, it's a move for the future, but I'm just not too sure about it. And as far as it all goes, I mean, let's say it does work out, San Francisco could be set up pretty nicely, because they'll probably still have a top 5 pick. And Saquon Barkley has been a player that's really been linked to them. So if he goes there, then I mean, San Francisco might have struck something, but we'll see as far as that goes. And now New England currently has no backup. So, I mean, Brian Hoyer was released by the San Francisco 49ers after the trade. So, I mean, you could see him going there. And I know that this name is turned into like, you can't say that anymore. But Colin Kaepernick, he's out there too. And he's probably the best backup option that's out there besides Brian Hoyer. I understand that it probably makes more sense for the Patriots to pick up Hoyer just because he knows the offense and he's just familiar with the team. So I figure that they're going to pick him up eventually because Tom Brady's going to need a backup. And actually, this is actually kind of interesting now that the Patriots traded Garoppolo, because with him gone, that means that Tom Brady's going to be around for a while he's going to be around for 5 more years most likely, because if you have a guy that you really like as backup and you're just developing him to become Brady's successor, then and you trade him, then that obviously means that he's going to be there for a while, and that's not good news for the AFC East, but we'll see how that goes. And another little trade that went down that really hasn't gotten too much attention because of these last 2 trades was Dwayne Brown was traded to Seattle. And I don't really understand that move either for the Texans. I mean, it might have to do with the holdout and all that stuff, but now Seattle is a team they're gonna be really good going forward, and they're gonna be an NFC contender with Philly. I believe that those are probably going to be the 2 teams that are playing in the NFC Championship this year, because really the NFC hasn't really produced too many good teams so far this season. Minnesota's a solid team, but other than that, I don't really see anyone else competing with the Seahawks or the Eagles come playoff time. The Rams are a really good team right now, but they're a really young team also, so they'll probably make the playoffs this year, but I don't really see them going too far. They'll probably lose in a wild card game, maybe to Seattle or a team like Philly, but we'll see about that. So yeah, this is probably the most exciting trade deadline that's gone down in a while, because we really wait and see if anything's really going to happen. The last few years, nothing has. But like yesterday, Monday night when the Jimmy Garoppolo trade went through, social media was going crazy. Twitter was just all fire. All these reporters were just in shock with how it happened, and everyone. That's another thing too. I don't really understand like people saying that, oh, they only gave up a 2nd-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, the guy has only played 2 games so far. So, I mean, he doesn't have too much value. The only value is that he comes from the Patriots, and Bill really doesn't trade away solid talent. So, I mean, who knows? He might be wrong on this one, and he might have traded away a great future quarterback. But like I said, only time will tell. But it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out with Ajayi, Garoppolo, and now Seattle finally has a solid offensive tackle for Russell Wilson, and all he needs is more time just to get things going. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out. Like I said, if Jimmy G does work out for the San Francisco 49ers, then yeah, you probably will see them draft Saquon Barkley next year, and that's going to be a nice little 1-2 punch. Of course, putting on my hindsight glasses, like if it does work out well for them and Jimmy G does play well, because Saquon Barkley is probably one of the better running back prospects that we've had in a decade, probably the best actually, with how everyone has been talking about him. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But yeah, once again, Ajayi traded to the Philadelphia Eagles for a 4th-round pick. Jimmy Garoppolo traded to San Francisco for a 2nd-round pick, and then Dwayne Brown was traded to Seattle for, I think it was a late-round pick, and Jeremy Lane. So, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see, and I really like Philly so far this year. They've been doing everything right, and they're building a good team around Carson Wentz, so they're going to be a dangerous team going forward. But other than that, that's going to be it for our segment, and we'll be right back. Thanks for listening. Hey, are you looking to spice things up in the bedroom? Have you been fantasizing about surprising your lover with an adventurous new toy or adult movie? Well, AdamandEve.com has an offer that you're not going to be able to resist. If you go to AdamandEve.com, and for a limited time only, you'll get 50% off just about any item. But that's not all they're offering. Oh no. When you select your one item at 50% off, you're also going to receive 3 free adult DVDs, for that little inspiration. Plus, a free extra gift so sensual, I can't even mention it on the podcast. And to top it all off, they're even going to throw in free shipping on your entire order. And we all know how we love that free shipping. And no, they're not kidding about any of this. So check out AdamandEve.com today for this special offer. You're going to get 50% off one item when you type in the promo code SPORT. That's SPORT. When you do that, you'll get 3 free DVDs, a free extra gift, and that free shipping. So just type in the offer code SPORT at AdamandEve.com. Again, that's SPORT, SPORT at AdamandEve.com. welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. Start off this next segment, I'm going to talk a little bit about Ezekiel Elliot, and he's actually suspended now for the 6 games, so yeah, let's get into it. So yeah, Monday night, the judge ruled that Ezekiel Elliott's suspension was going to be reinstated, so now he's out for 6 games. I believe he does have an opportunity to appeal it, but I'm not sure how that's going to work out, or if he does, if it will work out for him. So yeah, let's get into it and just talk about what it means for the Cowboys and him, actually. So I'm going to put my hindsight glasses on for a little bit. Now that the Cowboys, I believe they're 4-3, they're really hitting their stretch run right now for the season. Okay, they got for these next 6 games. Let's say he is out for these 6 games. For the Cowboys, they have Kansas City, then they're at Atlanta, then Philadelphia, then the Chargers, then Washington, and then they're playing in New York against the Giants. So against Kansas City, you really need a guy like Ezekiel Elliott because Kansas City has a really good defense so far this season. We'll get into their Monday night game against Denver a little later in the show, but yesterday they were playing lights out and creating turnovers. So I mean, now they just have to game plan for Dak Prescott, because now you don't need to worry about Alfred Morris or Darren McFadden, because they don't pose the same threat that Ezekiel Elliott does. Ezekiel Elliott, you need to worry about him, and I feel like that's what helps Dak Prescott the most, is that he doesn't have too much pressure on him because teams are game planning for Zeke. And then at Atlanta, that's still a game that they could pull out, because Atlanta, for some reason, just hasn't looked all too good so far this season. I feel like that has to do more with Steve Sarkisian rather than the team itself, because it's the same players from last year. Julio Jones he's a top receiver, but he just hasn't looked good so far this year. Matt Ryan he's played well so far this year, but it's just not up to his MVP standards from last year. Devontae Freeman does not get the ball enough, and I feel like they're just not utilizing Tevin Coleman enough too out of the backfield for those playmaking plays, as far as like receptions and all that go out of the backfield. So against Atlanta in Atlanta, I still think that's a game that they can pull out. Atlanta really doesn't scare me, and I feel like Dallas even is a better team right now, even if they don't have Ezekiel Elliott. Then they got Philadelphia, which is in Dallas, but I don't really like Dallas's chances in that game. Like I said earlier in the first segment, Ajayi is now with the Eagles, so they're going to have to worry about that offense. And with Ezekiel Elliott out, like I just said, it's going to come down to how it is for Dak. Teams are just going to plan for him. They're not going to stack the box anymore, and they're just going to play with more DBs in the secondary. So Alfred Morris and Darren McFadden are really going to have to step their game up. But like I said, I don't really like Dallas's chances in that game. Against the Chargers, that's a winnable game for Dallas right there at home. The Chargers really aren't all too good this season. They got Phillip Rivers. He's playing okay. But other than that, I mean, yeah, you got Melvin Gordon, but the Chargers just really haven't looked convincing at all, and they're just going through the motions pretty much this season. So we'll see how that goes. I like Dallas in that one, though, for them. And then against Washington, division games are always going to be tough no matter who's it against. They could be playing the Giants, and we'll get into that game in a little bit. But yeah, they could be playing. Division games are just tough, so it's going to be really hard for them in that game also without Zeke. And then the week after, like I just said, they have the Giants in New York, and I just really don't. It's just this 6-game stretch is really, since they're 4-3, the Rams are playing well. And I forgot who's the other wildcard team right now, but yeah, the Rams are playing well. So Dallas really can't afford to be losing these games. They're going to really need Zeke, and if he would have just took his suspension in the beginning of the year, then Dallas wouldn't be dealing with this problem. He'd be back already, and I'm sure that Dallas really wouldn't have struggled all that much with him out for the first 6 games of the season, because I think Dak is a capable quarterback. I think that he could still get him to 4-3 even if he didn't have Zeke for these first 6 games. Well, actually, it'd be 3-3 since they just won this past week, and he would have played if he would have took his suspension. But now that they don't have him, it's really they're going to compete with Atlanta, Carolina, who is in the 6th wildcard spot right now. But actually, they made a trade today, and we'll get into that in a few moments. But yeah, they have to worry about the Rams, Carolina, Atlanta. Green Bay is not really a team that's going to worry me, because Brent Hundley is just not a quarterback he's just not a good quarterback right now. And Detroit is 3-4, but it's early, and Matt Stafford has been playing pretty good this season, so they still have time to figure out. And Washington is right there, right behind him. And Washington is not a great team by any means, but they're a team who can compete and they can pull out some wins. So, I mean, it's going to be tough for Dallas for these next 6 games. And like I was saying, we're going to find out what kind of quarterback Dak really is, because personally, I think he's a really good quarterback. But as far as what everyone else thinks, you see a lot of people saying, you know what, it's because of his offensive line. It's because of Ezekiel Elliot. And personally, I think that he still makes throws that show, you know what, he can be a good quarterback, and he is a good quarterback. But like I said, we're just going to see. And it's going to be rough for Dallas these upcoming games. The offense is definitely going to take a hit. You need that guy who averages over 100 yards for you most of the time, and he's always putting up 2 touchdowns. And now that you don't have that, like I said, you're not going to get that from Alfred Morris, I don't believe. And I don't think Darren McFadden really is worth much so far at all right now. And they do have Rod Smith, who's kind of like a wild card type of player for them. He hasn't really played all that much this season, but he does produce when he does come in, and in the preseason he did play really well. So I mean, watch out for him. But like I said, it's just the offense is going to take a really big hit. So we're going to see how that all goes. But like I said, Carolina, they just made a trade, and they traded away Kelvin Benjamin right now. Like, it literally happened at about 1 o'clock Tuesday. Yeah, they traded away Kelvin Benjamin to the Buffalo Bills for a 3rd and 7th round pick. Buffalo's giving up the 3rd and 7th round pick. So that's another odd deal to me. And it kind of makes you think, even with the Ajayi deal to the Eagles, if Buffalo's giving up a 3rd and a 7th for Kelvin Benjamin, then how come Miami couldn't get more than a 4th for Ajayi? But that's just the way it goes sometimes, I guess, with GMs. But yeah, let's get into this whole Kelvin Benjamin trade. It's news to me right now. So Buffalo finally have a decent receiver. Let me get started with this. Zay Jones has just not been what they expected. He's been a bit of a bust so far this season. And with Kelvin Benjamin, Tyrod Taylor has a weapon that he can throw to. And now LaShawn McCoy, he's not going to have to do all the dirty work constantly for the offense. It's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out for Buffalo right now. They're 5-2. And their defense has been playing lights out. And like I said, LaShawn McCoy has been carrying the offense. But now that Tyrod Taylor has this new weapon, and Kelvin Benjamin he's starting to play really well the last couple of seasons. I know he was hurt, and last year he didn't play all too well. And I think it was his rookie years when he played really well, or the year after that. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, Buffalo needed a guy like that. Buffalo's never really had a strong receiving corps. They had Sammy Watkins before, but he was always injured and not really someone you could rely on. And Kelvin Benjamin now, he's been healthy so far this season, and he's really been doing well in an offense for Carolina that hasn't played all too well. And we'll talk a little bit about Carolina right now. But as for Buffalo, it's going to be interesting for them. Now I think that they might be a lock for the playoffs. I know it's early, but I really like Buffalo so far this season, and I think they will make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win the division because it still belongs to New England, and you can't really pick against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick no matter what, so we'll see about that. But as far as the wild card goes, I think that they're going to get one of those spots. Miami's right behind them. That's with a 4-3 record, but they're still trying to figure things out now that they got rid of Ajayi. And as far as everyone else goes, they got Jacksonville behind them, but Jacksonville's in that 6th wild card spot, and Buffalo's currently in 5th, and they got Baltimore and Houston. And really, it's going to come down to, for those 2 spots, it's going to come down to Buffalo, Jacksonville, Miami, Baltimore, and Houston. Houston's currently 3-4, so they're about 2.5 games back of Buffalo and about a game back of Jacksonville. So I know they have the losing record right now, but Deshaun Watson's been playing really well, and I think that he's going to bring them back, and it's going to be close at the end. But as for Buffalo, they're just furthering themselves from that little pack right there. They're better than Jacksonville, they're better than Miami right now, and they're definitely better than Baltimore and Houston. So like I said, I like the Bills' chances going forward, and finally that they're doing something right. I know the fans have been dealing with all kinds of misery since they haven't made the playoffs in quite some time, but now that they got Benjamin, it's going to be really interesting, and you might even see Tyrod Taylor play even better with a new weapon. I know that's easy to say, but he's always been a decent quarterback, but now you're going to see his numbers go up a little bit. And as for Carolina, I don't really understand the trade. I mean, yeah, you're getting a 3rd round pick and a 7th round pick, but as far as it all goes, I mean, you're currently 5-3. You haven't really looked all that good so far this season. They're only a half game back of New Orleans, and Atlanta hasn't looked too good. Dallas is without Zeke. Detroit they're figuring it out as they go, and it just doesn't make sense to me. If you're trying to make the playoffs, I know the offense hasn't looked all that good, and now it's actually going to be the Ed Dixon show for them, because I don't think Devin Funchess he's not going to produce anymore. I don't think Cam Newton he's looked average at best so far this season. So I guess we're just going to see how it goes for them. But like I said, it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't get why teams like Miami and Carolina are making these trades when you're trying to make the playoffs. I mean, I can understand like there's but influences that we really don't see going on behind the scenes. So I mean, it could be Kelvin Benjamin just wasn't happy with the production so far in Carolina, and that's understandable too, because like I said, Cam Newton just hasn't looked good at all, and the offense just hasn't looked. It's looked so, I guess, if you want to use that as a phrase. Yeah, it's been so. Christian McCaffrey leads that team in receptions, and I'm sure that doesn't sit well with Kelvin Benjamin. So maybe he did request a trade, or maybe he didn't, but Carolina definitely got good value for him. Third round pick, those aren't, it's not a second, it's not a first, obviously, and you're not going to get talent right there, but I mean, you can always find a decent player in there, and maybe eventually develop them well enough, and whoever they pick in that third round is just going to do well for them. But and like them getting 2 picks is really good, so we'll see how it goes for them. But I really don't like Carolina's chances for making the playoffs this year anymore now that they got rid of Benjamin. Like I said, the offense hasn't been playing well. The defense does their job, but it's not really a team that excites you or anything like that. Like they played Tampa Bay this past Sunday and they won 17-3, and you think, oh wow, they beat them by 14 points, but that game was just pretty boring and there was no excitement. Cam Newton didn't even throw for more than 175 yards, and I believe he had a pick. So, like I said, I really don't like Carolina going forward anymore. I would think Atlanta, now this opens up the door for Atlanta, when they haven't been playing all that well, to jump Carolina for that spot. Because now with this trade happening, I really think that the 6th wildcard spot, because I think LA is the lock. LA and Seattle, those are 2 teams in the NFC West that are a lock for the playoffs for me. It could be interchangeable. They're both 5-2 right now. So, I mean, Seattle could end up with the division, or LA could, but I really think that one of them is going to end up with a division as a division winner, and the other one's going to end up with a wild card spot. So that 6th spot is up for grabs, and I think that now it's going to come down to Atlanta, Dallas. We'll see about Dallas, actually, now that they don't have Zeke. But, yeah, I'm going to throw them in there. Atlanta, Dallas, Detroit, and maybe even Washington. Washington they're not a team that impresses me, but Detroit is a team that Matt Stafford always has these end of the year type of games where he turns into the top 5 quarterback that he can be sometimes, and it's really going to be interesting to see how well he does once it comes time to show up. But now that Carolina traded Kelvin Benjamin, I'm going to go with Atlanta for that 6th wildcard spot. But only because it'd be Dallas, but like I said, with Zeke gone for this little 6-game stretch, I really don't like their chances in too many of those games. I think they'll pull maybe 3. Yeah, they'll go 3-3 over that, and that would put them at 7-6. And I really just don't think. I think you're going to need 10 wins in order to make the playoffs in the NFC. So I really like Atlanta, and like I said, Detroit's 3-4. So I mean that kind of goes against what I'm saying, but Stafford is always that type of quarterback to where he's going to turn it up towards the end of the year, and he's going to win those games. And I believe it was like a couple years ago where he did something like that, and they ended up making the playoffs. So watch out for Detroit and Atlanta for that 6th wildcard spot. And just to repeat it again, I don't like Carolina finishing for that spot now that they got rid of Benjamin. Their offense got worse, and I don't know, they pulled a page out of Miami's book there, but we'll see how it goes. So that's going to finish it up for that segment, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. For this next segment, we're going to talk some NBA. We're going to go over some score stats and talk a little about games that interested me Monday night. So let's get started. So the Spurs went into Boston and lost that game 94-108. Jaylen Brown scored 18 points. Al Horford finished the game with 14 points, 13 rebounds, and Kyrie Irving had 24 points, 6 assists for Boston. Marcus Aldridge really had probably his worst game of the season thus far. He had 11 points on 5 of 13 shooting. Like I said, we'll talk a little bit about that game in a little bit. Minnesota went into Miami, won that game in overtime, 125-122. Jeff Teague finished with 23 points, 11 assists. Andrew Wiggins had 22 points and 7 rebounds. He also had a nasty dunk in that game. I suggest you go back and watch it because it was pretty insane. Deion Waiters finished the game with 33 points, and Kelly Olynyk finished the game with 23 points. Deion Waiters, I'm not sure what it is, but this guy has just been a baller for Miami thus far since he's been there. Denver went into New York and lost 116-110. Nikola Jokic finished with 28 points, 8 rebounds, and Kristaps Porzingis had 38 points and 7 rebounds. New York's really kind of surprised me so far this year. I know it's only been 2 weeks, but I really expected them not to be that good of a team. I didn't think they were that good of a team with Melo, but even now without him, I expect them to be way worse. But Porzingis is really showing everyone that, yeah, he's the franchise and he's the guy that you need to build it around. And I'm not saying that I didn't think Porzingis was the guy or his ability wasn't that good, but it's been kind of surprising to see that the Knicks are out here winning games. I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs this season or anything like that, but for them to beat the Cavs and then just win a couple of games after that has been pretty impressive so far. So, yeah. Philadelphia went into Houston and won that game 115-107. Ben Simmons had 24 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds. Joel Embiid had 22 points, 9 rebounds. Eric Gordon had 25 points, and he's been doing pretty well so far this season. He's been scoring right around that little 25-point average game, points per game. So, yeah, Eric Gordon has really been someone who stepped up ever since Chris Paul went down. I think it was the first game he went down. And James Harden finished the game with 29 points, but he shot 8 of 21 during the game, so it wasn't really all that good of a game for him. Charlotte went into Memphis, won that game 104-99. Kemba Walker had 27 points. Marc Gasol had 10 points, and he shot 4 of 15. Mike Conley also had a bad game. He scored 16 points, but shot 4 of 18. And for the entire game, Memphis as a team shot 34%, but I think that was their second loss of the season so far. So, I mean, they've been doing pretty well in holding their own. Orlando won again against the Pelicans in New Orleans. They won 115-99. Aaron Gordon had 17 points, 7 rebounds. That's a player who he's a good candidate for most improved player this year. We've been waiting for him to break out ever since play up to his potential since he left Arizona, and it looks like this season is the season where he's going to be doing that. Evan Fournier had 20 points. DeMarcus Cousins didn't have all that good of a game. Finished with a double-double, had 12 points, shot 5 of 14, but also had 12 rebounds. And Anthony Davis had 39 points on 13 of 20 shooting and had 10 rebounds in that game also. Dallas went into Utah, lost that game to the Jazz, 104-89. Dirk had 18 points. Dennis Smith Jr., he's been kind of disappointing this last week. He hasn't been shooting the ball that well. He finished the game with 2 points and shot 1 of 7 for the field. Rodney Hood had a pretty good game, scored 25 points, and Rudy Gobert has been that little rock for the Jazz. He's been consistent for them. He's had 17 points, 4 or 5 on only 5 shots, and he had 12 rebounds. Rudy Gobert is a player really that doesn't get his fair shake in the NBA. I'm not sure if it's because he's just a center who can't shoot threes. Actually, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Gobert's he's a center that should have played in the 90s, I guess. He's more of that type of player, and I know that now fans and people around the league, they really enjoy seeing these guys who can dribble and shoot the three and all that, but Gobert is that little breath of fresh air right there. He posts up, and he's well when he's next to the rim. Toronto went into Portland and beat the Blazers 99-85. DeMar DeRozan finished with 25 points on 10 of 20 shooting. Kyle Lowry had 19 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists. Damian Lillard had 36 points, and CJ McCollum didn't have all that good of a game. He had 16 points of 5 of 16 shooting. Warriors went into LA and faced off with the Clippers. They won that game 141-113, and I believe I saw a stat that in the last 2 years, the Warriors have had 4 games where they scored more than 140 points, and there's only been 2 teams to do that. I believe it was Brooklyn and Houston were the only 2 teams Oh yeah, they didn't match that. They've only done it twice, so it's a pretty big feat for Golden State, and it just shows you what kind of team they are. They're just incredible, and like I said in previous podcasts, in the basketball one and the sports ones, that they're going to be in the finals once again this year. But to get into stats, Draymond Green had 16 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, a typical Draymond game from him. He's always doing everything for that team. Kevin Durant had a pretty quiet game, but he shot well, had 19 points on 7-11 of shooting and 7 rebounds. Steph Curry went off for 31 points, 9 of 14 shooting, and he hit 7 out of 11 threes in that game. Blake Griffin was really kept quiet that entire game, and that might be the Draymond effect right there. Griffin had 16 points on 4 of 10 shooting. Gallinari, he's been a really impressive player so far this season. Now that he's being used a lot more than he was in Denver, he's got 19 points on 8 of 15 shooting in that game. And this was only the second time so far this season that LA has given up more than 100 points. The last time they did that was when they beat Portland 104-103 off of the Blake Griffin buzzer beater. And there was a game-winning three buzzer beater. But yeah, the Clippers, even though they got the breaks beat off them by Golden State, they're still a team that's going to be a solid team going forward. And I'm really impressed with how they played. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the Celtics game first. It was the first game actually since 2011 that the Celtics beat the Spurs. I think it's been about 10 games since in that span, and yeah, the Celtics lost 10 straight, but the Celtics are starting to look really good. Everyone expected them to go down once Gordon Hayward went down. They've looked extremely good so far this season. Kyrie Irving is starting to find his footing. He's starting to get more comfortable with the players around him, and you're even seeing him start to play a little bit more defense. In Cleveland, he never really showed that he had that defensive capability. I'm not sure if it's just because, most of that team never really played defense. They were really just a three-point shooting team who just got by on offense and did well, and that's how they've been making it to the finals the last few years. But now I'm not sure if it's just Brad Stevens or it's just the Celtics type of thing where Kyrie Irving is out there hustling and playing defense. He's been a solid player for them so far, and if he keeps playing defense, then it's going to be a complete upgrade over Isaiah Thomas. I wasn't really sure about the whole trade when Boston traded Isaiah Thomas because he's had one of the best seasons in Celtic history. And I wasn't really sure that Kyrie was that much better than him, but so far Kyrie has proven that, it's been a good deal. Danny Ainge made a good deal, so we'll see how he goes. Al Horford, he's never really been a big rebounder, but he's averaging around, I think, 9 or 10 a game, and like I said, he had 13 against the Spurs, so that might be something to look out for. And Aaron Baines is someone who he's been a pretty good rebounder for them too, and he's been a bit of a surprise to me because I didn't really expect him to play all that well. Well, expect him to do okay, but not as well as he's been doing so far this season. And Jaylen Brown, he's struggling the last couple of games, but he picked it up, had 18 points, and the Spurs they didn't have one of those good games. They've been playing really well so far, even without Kawhi. LaMarcus Aldridge, he's been playing well, and Pau Gasol has been a decent player, and they have guys like Kyle Anderson and all those other guys out there, and I'm not sure. People like to say that the Spurs play system basketball, and I'm sure that they do, but these guys got talent still. And this is a team that, as long as Pop is coaching, they're like the New England Patriots. As long as the Patriots have Bill Belichick, then they're going to be out there winning games and competing with the best of them till he's not there anymore. And that's exactly what the Spurs are with Greg Popovich. The Spurs have been winning and competing with the best of them since the late 90s, and look at it now. We're almost into 2020, and the Spurs are still that consistent team that you got to worry about. It doesn't matter who's playing, who's not playing. They're always going to be a team who's out there doing well. So yeah, Greg Popovich is a coach we all need to appreciate right now, and I know that most of the league does, but we just need to realize he's one of the best ever, and it's incredible how well he has been playing. But yeah, Celtics looked good yesterday, and Spurs just had one bad game, but like I said, you really don't got to worry about them. Minnesota and Miami, that was another interesting game to me. It was 125-122 in OT. Jeff Teague had a really good game, and Minnesota is also honestly been kind of disappointing so far this season. If Jimmy Butler really doesn't have a good game, I believe he had around 20 points in Monday's game. I can't remember exactly, but when he's not playing well, then the Timberwolves really just don't look all too good. They look like how they did last year, so I'm not sure what it is. They just need to find a way to play as a cohesive unit and just play ball. But yeah, Miami's a team that they're a young team right now, and they're not really young, but they need a star in order for them to be back. I think they have a chance of making the playoffs this year. They could be anywhere from like a 7th to 8th seed in the East. So, and that's another thing. Eric Spoelstra is a good development coach. like you see guys like Tyler Johnson and Wayne Ellington, I believe, had 24 points in that game too. So yeah, you're always going to see the Heat playing well because they have a guy like Eric Spoelstra who's going to get the best out of his players, just like Brad Stevens does and Greg Popovich does. And those are really good coaches for the NBA. You want to play for guys like that. But yeah, Minnesota came away with that one. And let's talk a little bit about the Sixers. Sixers won 115-107 against a really good Houston team, and the Sixers are, I think they're 3-5 right now. Yeah, they should be around 3-5. And Ben Simmons actually after the game, he said that I'm not playing as well as I should be. And you kind of think to yourself, well, what do you mean? You're almost averaging a triple-double. So if Ben Simmons can reach a different level, then the Sixers are going to be a scary team going forward. I've said multiple times before that I don't really think that they're going to be a team that's going to challenge in the East or anything this season. They might make the playoffs, but I believe they're going to get bounced in the first round. But next year and the year after that, if they're going to be a scary team, they're going to be up there with the Celtics, the Bucks, and the Wizards. I don't really think, I'm not mentioning the Cavs. I mean, if LeBron is there, then obviously you have to mention them, but the Cavs really aren't a team who's playing all that well this season either, and I think this is going to be the last year of their stronghold on the East. So yeah, watch out for the Sixers to be that team that takes over next season in the Cavs spot. As far as the standings goes, it's been a really weird first couple of weeks for the NBA. You're seeing teams in the top that you really wouldn't expect. Like in the East right now, Boston is in first, and then it gets kind of shaky after that. Orlando and Detroit are the 2 and 3 seeds after that. And again, I know it's early. I'm not saying that this is how it's going to end up or anything like that, but it's something interesting to me. Orlando and Detroit are the 2nd and 3rd seeds respectively with 5-2 records, and you got Washington who's 4-2, Toronto right after that 4-2, Charlotte's 4-3, and then Indiana is a team really no one's talking about. They got Victor Oladipo and Sabonis out of that trade, and they're playing really well, and they got that team playing well. I believe it was on the last sports podcast I did where I mentioned how they're playing well, and once they get Miles Turner back, they're not going to be a really good team. Let me rephrase myself. They're going to be a team that is going to surprise some people. Okay, they're going to be one of those 6 to 8 seeds, and I think they're going to play really good. And then you got New York, who's 3-3, and they're right behind. They're right there with Indiana. Indiana's only in the A spot, and Brooklyn is actually a team who no one really gives respect to Brooklyn, but D'Angelo Russell's been playing well, and I think that he has a good chance of winning Most Improved Player this year after he left the Lakers. Now he's got his own team and he can do his own thing. And then you got Cleveland, who's 3-4, and they've been extremely disappointing so far this season. I'm not sure, really sure what it is. I mean, the Warriors also in the West. I think the Warriors, let me check their record. The Warriors right now are 5-3, and yeah, they're over 500 and whatnot, but you expect the Warriors to be like 6-1, like just one lost team right now so far, and the Warriors haven't really played that well, but the Warriors are going to be in the finals. Like, it's no doubt. The Cavs, you're not really so sure about them right now. They're not playing like a good team or anything like that. LeBron is playing well, but I mean, how long do you want that guy to be playing point guard for you? You want a guy like, I know they're not getting Isaiah Thomas back till January, so I mean, and Derrick Rose is out, and they really don't have a backup. Jose Calderon is not a point guard who's going to contribute to a team like that because he just doesn't play up to that level. So the Cavs are really a team that I'm really iffy about them right now. They're not really impressing. Then you got Philadelphia is 3-4 tied with Cleveland and that little 12 seed type of thing. I know that's not a real thing, but I'm just out here naming the standings. And then Miami, Chicago, and Atlanta. So the East is really, I'm sure that Cleveland's going to find their way back to the top, but I mean, it's just, they're not a team that really scares you this season. As for the West, you got Memphis, who's the 1st seed right now, 5-2. Then you got the Clippers, who are 4-2. They're playing really good defense, and I think that's one of the biggest things. They rebound and play defense well, and that's all you need really in the NBA because these guys are all pros, so they can all play ball. So as far as them being number 2, they're gonna be a team that competes with the top. I mean, I don't expect them to hold that little top 2 seed type of thing for the rest of the season or anything like that. They're probably going to end up 5th, but the Clippers are a team that have really impressed me so far. Houston is where they should be. They're 5-3 with the 3 seed. Like I said, Golden State right now, they're the 4th seed. They're 5-3. They're going to end up 1st. Actually, you know what? Golden State has actually played pretty laid back this year, and they're still the best team in the league, but don't be surprised if they don't finish as the 1 seed this year in the regular season. I know that that doesn't really matter for them because, like I said, they're going to end up in the finals, but I wouldn't really be surprised if they just pretty much, I'm not saying that they're going to take it easy this season, but they're not going to put so much on themselves. They know where they need to be, and they know that they have the team that's capable of making it to the finals. So I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see the Warriors as like a 2 or 3 seed possibly in the West, but like I said, we'll see. Then you got Minnesota, who's 4-3 in the 5th seed, and that's pretty much the range that they're going to be in. They're probably going to be 5-6 this year. So, yeah, they're where they need to be. San Antonio is 4-3 right now, but once they get Kawhi back, they're going to be even better. Like I said, they've been playing well so far this season. So, yeah, once they get Kawhi back, they're going to be back again in the top 4, probably top 3 for me. And you got Portland, who's the 7th seed, 4-3. Then Utah, who's been playing pretty good. They've been riding Rudy Gobert, and he's really stepped it up because you weren't really sure how they were going to do with Gordon Hayward gone from them. But like I said, Rudy Gobert is a player you can build around, even though he's not that prototypical center that the NBA is producing now. He's not like a Joel Embiid or anything like that, but he's gonna do well, and he's not going to miss too many shots because he plays near the rim constantly. He's a good rim protector also on defense when he's playing defense. So, yeah, Utah is going to be in that little range with Portland around the 6th through 8th spot. And then you got Oklahoma City, who's currently 3-3. They're going to pick it up, I think, but they're not really a team who impresses me all that much. I know they have Paul George, Westbrook. Westbrook's actually been playing really well. He's even more efficient than he was last season. And then they got Melo, and I just feel like they're going to be a top 5 seed, top 4 seed. I think, yeah, they're going to be the top 4 seeds for me this season are going to be Golden State, Houston, San Antonio, and the Thunder. But the Thunder really, they're going to be a good team, but they really don't impress me. I don't think they can handle a team like the Warriors or even the Spurs, but we'll see how that goes. Denver's 3-4 right now. They're going to be competing for that A spot. And then New Orleans, that's a team that intrigues me. Right now, they're not playing all that good. They're 3-4, but Rondo's a player. I feel like that's going to be the X factor for that team. He's a really smart player. He's got a high basketball IQ, so we're going to see how well he does when he comes back from that sports hernia. And I think that he's going to make Boogie and Anthony Davis even better. They're already great players right now, but when you have a guy like Rondo out there facilitating the offense and just pretty much leading everything, you can't go wrong. So, yeah, that's how the standings are looking right now. And then you got the Lakers, Phoenix, and Sacramento and Dallas right there in those last 4 spots. And they're not really, they're not teams that are going to be competing for the 8th spot. Right now, the Lakers are trying to see what they have with Lonzo, and Brandon Ingram is a player who's been playing really well for them. But like I said, they're probably going to be in the lottery once again. Hopefully for them, it's not 2-5, or else they're going to have to give up that pick to Boston. Phoenix is they're the Cleveland Browns of the NBA right now, honestly. They fired their coach Earl Watson, I believe it was 3 games into the season. Josh Jackson, he's looked okay so far this season, but I don't know. Phoenix is a team playing with no direction really right now. They're not really sure where they're going or anything like that, so expect them to be in the bottom probably the next couple of seasons. Sacramento, they're not ready yet. They got a lot of young guys, but like I said, they're just not ready right now, so they just need to develop them, keep having them play behind George Hill. Originally, past couple of days before this, I was thinking maybe that they should start Fox, but his first game that he started against Washington, he played poorly. So yeah, you just need to develop those guys a little bit more. And Dallas is a team. They're 1-7 right now, and they're not a team. I mean, they're just waiting out for Dirk to finish out his career before they can start this full rebuild. And Dennis Smith, he's going through some rookie pains right now. He hasn't been shooting the ball really all that well, so I still think he's going to be a good player, but we'll see how it goes. So yeah, that's how the East and West is looking right now, and that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Thanks for listening. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. For this segment, we're going to talk about the Monday night game between Denver and Kansas City. So that game was just Kansas City dominated it from start to finish. They look really good, and Denver is just, I don't know what's wrong with that team right now, but they're just not looking good at all. So yeah, let's get it started. Let's go over some points right here. The Chiefs forced 5 turnovers. And Trevor Siemian, really, a couple of those were on him. It wasn't really the Chiefs forcing everything. I remember it was a play where Trevor Siemian's running to one side of the field, And he did no for a quarterback. He threw across his shoulder, and boom, he threw a perfect pass to the Chiefs. I believe it was their DB. I'm not sure. Yeah, I can't remember exactly. But yeah, he threw a perfect pass to him, and it was intercepted. And Trevor Siemian just didn't look good at all yesterday. But we'll talk a little bit about that after the game, after I discuss the game. So Alex Smith finished the game with 202 yards and 1 touchdown. Kareem Hunt, he didn't have all that good of a game. Finished with 22 carries and 46 yards. I actually thought that he was going to have near around 85 or 80 yards, but Denver just played lights out, that defensive line, as far as containing Kareem Hunt. So yeah, he only had 22 carries for 46 yards. Travis Kelce just caused havoc for that Denver defense constantly throughout the game. 7 receptions, 133 yards, and 1 touchdown. Travis Kelce is probably the best tight end in the league right now, with Zach Ertz behind him. And yeah, those guys are just, Travis Kelce's been really consistent for that team, and Kansas City has always been the type of team that just favors their tight ends in the offense. I'm not really sure why or anything like that. I'm sure it's just how the offense is run. But yeah, if you're a tight end in Kansas City, you're going to thrive, and Travis Kelce is showing us that. Trevor Siemian finished the game with 19 of 36, 198 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 whole interceptions. He just looked brutal throughout the game. Didn't look good at all. And like I said, we're going to talk about him in a little bit. C.J. Anderson had 15 carries, 78 yards. First half, he really didn't do too much. In the second half, I'm not sure if it's just the offensive line was building up holes or his cuts were just really good, because he was just finding a way to get past the linebackers, and he was doing well to break tackles. But you can't really do much when your quarterback isn't playing well. So Demaryius Thomas had 5 receptions for 66 yards, and he didn't have that good of a game either. But like I said, it all comes down to the quarterback. I mean, there were a few times where Trevor Siemian did make some good throws, and the Denver receivers really didn't do much to help him. I believe Benny Fowler, he dropped a touchdown right there near the end zone. Or he dropped the ball right there near the end zone. That if he would have caught it, I'm sure it would have been a touchdown. All he had to do was fall back. But when you're not making plays like this, it's not going to help your quarterback. It's just going to bury his confidence. And with Trevor Siemian already not playing that good, like I said, it's just going to kill the guy. Marcus Peters had a really good game. I think he had a fumble return for a touchdown. Let's go over the scoring plays first for that game. Marcus Peters returned a fumble for a touchdown. I believe it was for 40 yards in the first quarter. Let me see real quick. Yeah, Marcus Peters, 45-yard fumble return. Then Kansas City's next score was a Travis Kelce 29-yard catch from Alex Smith. Then Denver brought it down to 14-3 with a Brandon McManus 27-yard field goal. Harrison Butker, the Chiefs kicker, had a really good game yesterday. He had a 25-yard field goal, which made it 17-3. He kicked another one later in the third quarter, 20-3. Then Denver's kicker McManus kicks a 34-yarder, which makes it 20-6. Devontae Booker, he actually had a decent game yesterday. It wasn't really big stats or anything like that, but when he got the ball, he did well. He had a 6-yard touchdown run, which brought Denver down 7. And Denver was playing really well in the second half. Well, for the most part, they were playing well in the third quarter, and then you were thinking, oh, you know what? Oh, maybe they're going to be able to pull this out. The defense is making stops, and the offense isn't looking as bad as it looked in the first half. But the fourth quarter comes, and the defense was holding Chiefs to field goals, but Denver's offense just couldn't get in the end zone for some reason. Harrison Butker kicked 3 field goals in the fourth, which brought them up 29-13, and then Denver scored a nice little garbage time touchdown with an 11-yard pass from Trevor Siemian, which made it 29-19 because they failed on the 2-point conversion. So yeah, Denver's offense just really did no favors yesterday. When I previewed the game on the football podcast, I said it's going to come down to whether or not Denver's offense is going to play well. If they play decent, then they have a chance of winning the game because the defense is going to keep them in it, and the defense did exactly that. They kept them in it, but the offense just couldn't capitalize or score touchdowns. But yeah, I don't know. We're really sure where Denver's going to go from here. As far as Trevor Siemian goes, I believe it was the coach talking about how Brock Osweiler might get a chance to start next week. Him and Siemian are just pretty much going to compete this week in practice, and he's going to decide who's going to be the next starter. And as far as that all goes, I mean, it's pretty much Russian roulette. It's not really fun because Brock Osweiler is not a good quarterback. I remember when Peyton Manning had his last season when they went to the Super Bowl, Peyton Manning was playing terrible, just awful. And Peyton Manning is one of the best ever, but like I said, just that last season was terrible. Brock Osweiler comes in, and he plays just as bad. I mean, Brock Osweiler is not a good quarterback, so he got benched. Peyton Manning comes back in. They win the Super Bowl that year. Then Brock Osweiler gets paid by the Texans. We all know how that experiment went. He only lasted a year there, and Bill O'Brien couldn't wait long enough just to get him out of there and sends him to Cleveland. Cleveland doesn't want him, and if Cleveland doesn't really want you, then that's really nothing much you can do there. So they leave, and now he's back in Denver. But, I mean, if Denver's going to end up starting him, it's going to be the same result. He's not a good quarterback. Trevor Siemian is not that good of a quarterback. The offensive line is not playing good enough in order to give those guys a chance to even show if they can be good quarterbacks. So we're just going to see how that goes. But yeah, right now Kansas City is 6-2, Denver's 3-4, and right now Kansas City's looking like the top dog in the AFC West right now. But that brings me to now what I want to talk about is just after Week 8, where everyone stands in their divisions in the playoff picture right now. In the AFC East, New England is 6-2. Buffalo's only a half game back at 5-2. Miami is a weird team. They're right there, 4-3, a game and a half back of New England. And the Jets are currently 3-5. And I think that's probably going to be how the division finishes towards the end of the year. Miami and Buffalo are going to be competing for those wild card spots. I think Buffalo's going to get the 5th one, and then Miami will be competing with teams like Jacksonville and Houston and all of them for that 6th spot. In the AFC North, Pittsburgh is currently 6-2. Baltimore's only 2 games back at 4-4. Cincinnati is 3-4 and with 2.5 games back. And good old Cleveland, 0-8. So they're done this season. And actually, something I learned while I was doing this podcast is Cleveland tried trading for A.J. McCarron, and the deal was actually agreed upon at 3:55 Eastern Time, which is 12:55 Pacific Time. And the only reason it didn't go through was because it's actually kind of funny. The Browns did not send it into the NFL and make it official. Cincinnati let the NFL know it was happening, and the Browns just simply didn't. So that's why the trade go through. So Browns gonna Brown, right? AFC South, Tennessee is 4-3. Jacksonville's 4-3. So they're tied for that little division lead right there. Tennessee currently has a tiebreaker over them, so Jacksonville's currently in that 6th wildcard spot. And then Houston is 3-4, and watch out for Houston right now. I know they're under 500, but Deshaun Watson's playing lights out, so I wouldn't be surprised if Houston sneaks up and ends up taking that division. I'm actually going to make a pick right now. I like Houston for that division, just based off of how the offense has been playing, and the defense has been playing well too. So yeah, I'm going to go with Houston, but right now they're 3-4, and then Indianapolis, they're trying to figure out this whole Andrew Luck situation, and I don't really see them doing much for the rest of the season, so they're 2-6 right now. In the AFC West, Kansas City is 6-2, and they got the division locked up. Denver is not going to come back. Denver's actually probably going to get worse as the season goes on. And they got the Chargers, who are in 3rd place with 3-5, and Oakland is 3-5 also, but I believe the Chargers have the tiebreaker over Oakland. So if a team is going to come back and challenge Kansas City by some chance, it's going to be Oakland, but Oakland has to figure out their own things right now. So I feel like if Oakland makes the playoffs this season, it's going to be through the wild card. Now heading to the NFC. In the NFC East, Philadelphia is 7-1. Like I said, I talked about earlier in the show, they got Ajayi. Don't see them losing that division lead with Dallas losing Zeke for these 6 games. We're not sure if he's going to appeal it or whatnot. I doubt even if he does try and appeal it, that it's going to go through. So I expect him to finally serve the suspension. Yeah, so Dallas is in 2nd, 4-3. They're going to go through a crucial 6-game stretch, and we're going to find out a lot about Dak Prescott. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he can handle it. So like I said, we'll see. I think they'll finish these 6 games about 3-3, possibly 4-2. I don't think they'll do anything worse than 3-3. So we'll see about that. Washington is 3-4. They're still trying to figure things out. And the New York Giants are 1-6, and their season's pretty much done. In the NFC North, Minnesota is currently 6-2. They're looking pretty good, even with this is a whole circus of quarterbacks. They got Case Keenum a couple of games, and then Sam Bradford was playing well, but he's been hurt, and then we're not sure. Actually, it's looking like Teddy Bridgewater might come back, and he's better than the both of them, so I expect Minnesota to keep it up and win that division. Green Bay is currently in 2nd at 4-3, but I think they're going to lose a lot more games, actually, as the season goes on. Aaron Rodgers losing him was just terrible for them, and it was terrible for the offense, really. Now you're seeing Devontae Adams and Jordy Nelson. They're not going to be producing as well as they were. Devontae Adams was having a great year so far, and then Brett Hundley comes in, and it's just gonna mess up the offense. So I expect them to slip down a little bit. Detroit is 3-4 right now, and like I said earlier, Matt Stafford, even though they're 3-4, Matt Stafford just has those games towards the end of the season where he's just on fire, and he can always bring Detroit back and sneak into that wild card. And who knows, maybe Minnesota might lose a couple of games, Detroit might win a couple of games, so we might see a little divisional race right there. And Chicago's 3-5, and honestly, I think Green Bay is going to finish last. If Brett Hundley doesn't play well, or at least decent, I think that Green Bay is going to end up finishing last. I like Chicago a lot, actually, so far this season. They're 3-5, and they're not looking like a good team or anything like that, but just Mitch Trubisky is a quarterback I'm really high on, and they got Jordan Howard, who he's an established running back for that team, and he's going to do well every game for them, or at least that's what he's shown us so far this year. And they got Tariq Cohen, who's a nice little playmaker out the backfield too. So they just need to really upgrade the receiving corps when it comes to next year, so that way Trubisky has some weapons to throw to. In the NFC South, you got New Orleans, who's 5-2. Drew Brees is playing like I don't want to say he's playing like the old Drew Brees, but he's playing well this season, and that division is pretty weak, honestly. I mean, I know Carolina is 5-3 and Atlanta is 4-3, but Carolina just traded away their best wide receivers, so I don't expect that offense to do too much. So they're probably going to drop a few games, and I'm sure they'll drop out of that second spot and the wild card spot also. Atlanta is a team that Atlanta's a weird team. They have great players. They got great offense. Their defense is playing well, but I think it's just the coaches that is what's holding them back right now. I'm not too high on Steve Sarkisian. He does well in the first half, but for some reason, once the second half comes, they just get away from anything that was working, and that's the reason why they've lost games so far this season. Against Miami, they were beating them 17-0, and they took their foot off the gas, and that's how Miami came back. They just need to just keep it going for 4 quarters, but we'll see. Tampa Bay has just been really disappointing so far this season at 2-5. Jameis Winston has been playing. He commits too many turnovers. He needs to limit that because we all know he can be a good quarterback, but his turnovers are just what's hurting the team right now. And as for the NFC West, this is actually one of my favorite divisions. Seattle is currently 5-2, and the Rams are 5-2. Arizona's in third at 3-4, and San Francisco is at 0-8. San Francisco just got Jimmy Garoppolo, so we're going to see how that goes. I think that San Francisco they're going to be able to win a couple of maybe 2 games or 3 for the rest of the season. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo can be as bad as CJ Billy's Brethard is. His last name was kind of hard to pronounce, and Brian Hoyer's gone. So once Jimmy G's ready, he's going to be thrown out there, and he can't be any worse than how the quarterbacks have been so far this season. The defense is going to keep him in it. So yeah, look for San Francisco to maybe win a couple of games. But I really like the NFC West because Seattle is always a team that's going to be competing and whatnot, but the Rams are just a fun team to watch now. With Jeff Fisher gone, Jared Goff is finally playing like the quarterback we all thought he would be, and he's been playing really well, and that's given Todd Gurley more space to run because now with Jared Goff playing pretty good, defenses don't just have to stack the box against Todd Gurley, so now he's getting better runs and he's getting more yards, and he's just looked really well so far this season. And then as for the defense, when you got Aaron Donald in that D-line, it's always scary, and once the D-line is getting to quarterback so fast, I mean, the corners really don't have to do much when they're covering the receivers. So yeah, the Rams are a team that really excite me, and I think that they're going to make the playoffs right now. As for the playoff picture right now, we got in the AFC, Pittsburgh's the number 1 seed at 6-2, then Kansas City and New England. Those top 3 seeds are going to be interchangeable. I feel like it'll probably end up with Kansas City. Actually, I'm going to go, Pittsburgh's going to finish 1, Kansas City at 2, New England at 3. Then you got Tennessee at the 4th seed, who's 4-3. Then Buffalo with the 5th seed at 5-2, and Jacksonville with the 6th seed with the tiebreaker over Miami, who's also 4-3. So that 6th seed is going to be something to look out for in the wild card. As for the NFC, you got Philadelphia, who's number 1 right now at 7-1. I don't see that changing. I think that they're going to finish well the rest of the way, and I think they'll be the number 1 team in the NFC once the playoffs come. Then Minnesota and New Orleans are 2-3 respectively. Minnesota's 6-2. New Orleans is 5-2. That could change, but like I said, we'll see. Minnesota, if they get Teddy Bridgewater back and he plays well, then they're going to be a good team to reckon with once the playoffs start. Seattle's currently 4th. They're 5-2. I think that they're going to move up right now. That Dwayne Brown trade is really big for them. So yeah, I expect them to move up a couple of spots, and I really like them in Philadelphia for the NFC Championship. Like I said, I know it's early and whatnot. My opinion might change, but as of right now, I like Philly and Seattle in the NFC Championship. The Rams are currently in the 5th spot with the first wild card. They're 5-2. And then Carolina right now, they're in the 6th spot at 5-3, but I'm almost positive that's going to change. I don't see Carolina really keeping up anymore now that they traded Kelvin Benjamin, and Cam Newton has just been an average quarterback so far this season. So I expect Atlanta or Dallas, and maybe even Atlanta, Dallas, or Detroit is going to end up with that 6th spot. So we'll see. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment, and we'll be right back to talk about Tuesday night's Game 6 of the World Series.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
bit of the show, we're going to talk about Game 6 of the World Series. This is going to be a really interesting game. It's going to be Justin Verlander versus Rich Hill as the starting pitchers, and it's going to be a game where both teams need their starters to step it up because, for being honest here, none of these team starters have really played all that well other than Kershaw in the first game. I think I saw a stat. Yeah, it was a stat where in potential game-clinching games, Justin Verlander has an ERA below 1, so that's pretty incredible right there. So I mean, Houston's got to feel good about their chances tonight, but Dodgers also they have no choice but to feel good about theirs tonight. Also, they're playing at home, and it's pretty much do or die for them. So they don't really have much to do. They got to win this game, and if they don't, then boom, Houston gets their first World Series. And it was actually another interesting stat. Houston won their first World Series game in their franchise, actually Game 2 against the Dodgers. So Houston's going to ready for a bunch of firsts, so we're going to see how it goes. This game's going to be a bit weird because when they were last in LA for the first 2 games, it was really hot out and whatnot, but this California weather, we all know how it loves to just switch up and down. So now it's really cold, and it's going to be around 60 degrees around game time. And it's a pitcher's park, so we're going to see. I don't think that we're really going to see too many home runs today or anything like that. It's going to be a pitcher's duel, I think. Well, I hope so. I'm more of a type of guy who would rather see 1-0 type of games rather than... Actually, you know what? No, I can't be picky. This World Series has been really good, even with all these homers. But, yeah, like I said, dude, these pitchers are really going to need to step up their game today. Verlander's going to need to go at least 6, and so is Rich Hill. Rich Hill should be pretty good to go today, though, because I think he only he threw 60 pitches in Game 2, so we're going to see how it goes. And like I was saying, the bullpens are really stretched out. They need their rest, and they're not going to be able to... These managers aren't going to be able to use them all these bullpen pitchers throughout the game like how they've been. So, like I said, their starting pitchers need to do their job. AJ Hinch already said he's not even going to think about Game 7. He's going to try and focus on Game 6 and just do whatever he can to win Game 6. And that's a pretty good strategy, but it could also backfire because let's say they don't win Game 6 or whatever and they're spent for Game 7, which is Wednesday. You never know how it's going to end up. So, yeah, I feel like this is a must. Like, obviously, it's a must-win for Houston. If they win, they win the World Series. But I'm saying say they lose and they get to Game 7, I think Game 7 is going to go to the Dodgers. If Houston does not win this game, yeah, like I said right now, I like the Dodgers in Game 7, mainly because it's going to be home. And it's just Houston, I feel like they're just putting all their eggs into the basket for Game 6, so they need to win this game. And other than the pitchers needing to go a few more innings than how they've been the last couple of games, the game's also going to come down to which manager finally realizes that, it's the World Series, I can't be trying to do too much. Just play the game that we've been playing all year. And like I said, just don't do too much because these managers have both left pitchers in too long, kept pitchers out there for too short. Like Rich Hill, he only threw 60 pitches in the last game, and he wasn't doing too bad or anything like that. So maybe Dave Roberts could have kept him in, but Dave Roberts panicked a bit and took him out. But like I said, it's going to come down to these teams just need to go out there and play their game. You can't be doing too much in the World Series. You just got to go out there. Don't do too much. Like George Springer in the last game, even though he came back and hit the home run, don't be trying to dive and catch baseballs when there's one out and the guy's on first and you're not even sure if you're going to be able to make that play. You can't be the hero. No one needs to be the hero here. Go out there. If you're up at bat, swing at strikes. Like I said, baseball is a simple game. It's a simple but complicated game. Mentally, it's a complicated game, but when you're out there trying to just play to your best of your ability, it's a simple game. Hit the baseball, field the ball, don't do too much, okay? Just throw strikes. As for pitches, throw strikes, keep the ball down. Every time that these balls have been hit out, for most part, these pitchers have left the ball up, okay? These are professional. These are the 2 best teams right here. You can't leave the ball up against these hitters, against either team, okay? You got to keep the ball down. You got to throw strikes. And other than that, it's going to be an interesting game. I stated in the last sports podcast that I did when I was talking about Game 6 that I did like Houston in this game. Just Justin Verlander has been lights out this postseason. He's been lights out since he got to Houston. And like I said, he's got an ERA below 1 in a potential game-clinching game. So we're going to see. But if it comes down to Game 7, Houston's in real big trouble, so we'll see about that. But it's going to be a really fun game to watch, and hopefully it's just as exciting as the last few games have been in this series. Like I said, this has been one of the best World Series ever, and both teams have really shown why they're the best in the league. So it's going to be, both teams deserve it. It's not like one team deserves it more than the other. Both teams have just been playing lights out and playing well, so we're going to see. But other than that, now I want to get into games to watch and just update some live scores going on right now. So first off, let's actually do some live scores. In Champions League, Juventus tied Sporting 1-1, and I believe, let me check. Barcelona actually drew with Olympiacos 0-0. Manchester United beat Benfica 2-0 with an own goal from Mike Villar and Benfica, and Daley Blind scored a goal, which made it 2-0. So, Manchester United is in the lead of that group. Roma actually beat Chelsea 3-0. That was a game I was pretty interested in going into today, and Chelsea really disappointed. They gave up a goal in the first minute, and other than that, they were just outclassed throughout the game. So Chelsea, I believe Roma is now leading that group, and Atletico Madrid drew in their game 1-1, so now they're in huge danger of not making it out to the round of 16. PSG beat Anderlecht 5-0. PSG is one of my favorites for winning the Champions League this season, and I don't really think that... honestly, they are my pick for the season. Real Madrid hasn't played that well, and Barcelona doesn't look as good as they have before. Bayern Munich beat Celtic 2-1. And other than that, those are pretty much the only games that have been going on right now. So let's get into some games to watch for tonight, which is Tuesday night. In the NBA, I like Thunder at Bucks. That's an intriguing game to me. Giannis Antetokounmpo right now is averaging 34 points per game, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. Carmelo's averaging 23 points per game. And I think Russell Westbrook, he's not at a triple-double right now. Or actually, he's averaging a triple-double right now. Or actually, he's got 9 rebounds, so it's pretty much near triple-double, but it's about like 9.8 rebounds, I think. So all he needs is like a 10-rebound game today or 11-rebound game today, and he'll be averaging 1. So I like in that game, I think I'm gonna go Thunder in that one. Bucks have played well, but Thunder need to pull out a win. I think that they're gonna get it today. Pistons at Lakers is another good game for me. Avery Bradley has really been playing well for the Pistons since he got there, and he's really got that whole team playing defense right now. Andre Drummond's not really known for his defense, and Reggie Jackson's been off and on player since he's been there. But I like the Pistons have been playing really good. They're 5-2 right now. I think they're right below Boston. They're 3rd seed right now, right below Boston in the East. So we'll see. And as for the Lakers are they're an interesting team to watch because Lonzo's always going to draw you into Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball is always going to draw you into the Laker games, and you're always going to want to watch because of him. He's not really shooting the ball that good. He's averaging 7 rebounds and 7 assists, but going in, people really should have known that Lonzo wasn't going to be a scorer. So, we'll see how he does today. But, like I said, Jordan Clarkson he's the guy who really needs to start getting his respect on that team. He comes off the bench, and he's averaging 15 points per game right now, but I feel like with now that Lonzo's gotten all the hype, I feel like Jordan Clarkson is sort of like the forgotten guy on that team, and he's really been the best player so far for them. Brandon Ingram is also a player that's really intrigued me so far this season. He's really stepped up his game compared to last year. Last year he was a rookie and all that stuff, but so far this season he's played really well. He's shooting the ball a lot better, and we'll see how it goes from here. But those are the games to watch for me today. And other than that, that's pretty much it for today's podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.